They're the hip-hop legends who laid the foundation for what is now the most popular music genre in the world. From the streets of New York to TVs across the globe, their impact is even greater today. Yo MTV Raps host Fab Five Freddy traveled the country bringing hip-hop to millions of people for the very first time. He interviewed artists in their own environments, like Public Enemy's Chuck D and Flava Flav.
Hip-hop wasn't on the radio every place across the country at that time when Yo MTV Raps happened. Plus, you got to see who these guys were, where they lived. You know, I would take you to the basements where they made the music. I'd be in Compton with N.W.A, Fifth Ward in Houston with the Ghetto Boys.
Legendary female artist and battle rapper Roxanne Shante's life story is now a Netflix film. During this golden era, she was part of hip-hop's national explosion.
I was blessed enough to travel with the Juice Crew, and the Juice Crew consists of Marley Marl, Big Daddy Kane, MC Shan, Kool G Rappin' Polo, Master Ace, Craig G. That's just to name like some of the brothers who were able to tour at the same time.
Yo MTV Raps evolved in the late 80s when Ed Lover and Dr. Dre took over hosting duties. For Kool DJ Red Alert, who broke many records on Hot 97, what's good never goes out of style.
Change is going to come around as far as sound is concerned. It's just that you got to understand to be open-minded and adapt to what sounds right.
In some ways, the qualities you need to make it big in the music industry remain the same, but in other ways, there have been some major changes. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me, the one and only Kool DJ Red Alert, one of the most influential DJs in hip-hop, period. If you don't believe me, ask Flex. You can hear him on Saturdays at 6 p.m. on our sister station, WBLS. He's out all over the place in the community and the country as well. Red, great to have you with us.
Hey, how you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing good. Happy to have you with us finally.
Yeah,
we got you here. We got you here.
Okay.
And also with us is Roxanne Shante, pioneering female hip-hop artist and battle rapper. Maybe you've seen her feature film on Netflix called Roxanne. She's currently touring the country, promoting the film, but also engaging our communities in dialogues about the various issues that she encountered growing up and coming up. Roxanne, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you so much. Also with us is the one and only Fab Five Freddy, the original host of Yo MTV Raps. He's an artist and filmmaker, and great to have you with us, Fab.
It's nice to be here, Lisa.
We really appreciate it. Let me start with you.
Yeah.
When they started, how did you get the call about Yo MTV Raps? Where did that come from?
Wow. It was a guy named Peter Doherty, and I'm sad to say that the two guys that came up with the concept for the show, Peter Doherty and Ted Demme, are no longer with us. They're smiling down from above.
May they rest in peace.
Yes, Peter Doherty was a good friend of mine, downtown scene, Manhattan, where I was making moves. Peter knew things I was doing, having been in the movie Wild Style, kind of introduced the downtown scene to the music, to the culture, and he was lobbying MTV like, we need to do a show. So he reached out, hey man, I think I got him ready to do something, and I have you on my list to be a host. I'm like, really? Are you serious? And he asked me what would I like to do, and at that time, all the VJs used to be cooped up in the studio, recording, you know, sitting there, introducing videos. I said, well, I want to be like those guys. If I can be out and about, moving from the streets of Brooklyn to Harlem, traveling the country, I'll be more comfortable taking it.
And this was a big move because at that time, MTV was playing mostly rock music, pop music, mostly white artists.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of complaints among the emerging hip-hop artists that where is rap represented?
Well, black music in general wasn't being fully represented on MTV. You know, like people like Rick James had tried to take MTV to court back in the days because they was only really giving Michael Jackson a little bit of love and maybe some Prince, you know, when Doves Cry. But then they made an extreme radical move jumping on hip hop, which was, you know, wow. It
was pretty bold at that point.
It was real bold and real radical, and it paid off. It was the highest rated show on the channel right out the box.
And we're gonna continue to talk about that. Red, in terms of the music scene in that era, that you were, and you still are, but you were right in the middle as this whole thing was bubbling up. But it's like, how did you know what was a hot record? You weren't looking at SoundCloud or SoundScan or any of these, you know, downloads or anything like that. How did you know what was a hot record?
I learned being a DJ, you have to learn to take risks upon what you believe in. And that's what I was doing as I was pleasure being on radio during that time, 98.7 KISS FM, on late nights on the weekends. Here it is that, you know, you have so much music coming at you, but you have to narrow down to what is it that you believe in, the program in your show, that they become classics later on, and that's what I did. I took the chance.
And did you always go by the sound? Because your mixing has always had like a consistent vibe no matter what artists, that you're putting together.
Well, I always look at it this way. You got to be open-minded to all the different genres and different sounds that you can implement it right along with the hip-hop and also with some of the R&B and some other notions of music, and you see what fit. It's just like being a cook. You see how you're going to come out with a good meal.
And you keep coming up with great ones, Roxanne. For your career, and we saw in the film, how you went around and you started battling and that type of thing. But how do you feel in terms of what it took to get hot as an artist, and how did you make a name for yourself?
Well, for me, as far as making a name for myself, that was fairly easy because of the fact of being a battle rapper. In order to make a name for yourself, you just have to consistently win. So this way, when people see you or they know that you're coming, they know that it's definitely going to be a battle. They know it's going to be a great show. And it had a lot to do with stage performance and being a freestyle artist, being able to do things on spot, which made the audience already feel, or the crowd already feel involved, because everyone wanted to be in the front. Like, I want to be the person she talks about. I want to be the person that she uses. So that's how that kind of built up, where everybody wanted to kind of like be involved in whatever my battle was, because I would pull people out of the crowd.
And that was it. That was conscious, or that was just part of the way that you did it?
That was actually just part of the way that I did it, as far as knowing that was like my secret weapon of being a great freestyle artist. You sit back and you kind of would listen to whatever your opponent was going to say and then turn that around, use that towards them. So yeah, I call it the Nipsey Russell syndrome. So it worked for me.
It worked, definitely worked for you. Fab, in terms of the show, tell us how that started. Like, once you, did they say, you're like, I want to be out in the community, I want to be out in the scene that's out here.
Does. So
and they're like, but no, we got this great studio. And
no, Peter understood that I knew, what was popping. He saw the movie Wild Style. He knew that I was behind, what was, in that film, showing all elements of the culture. So he trusted my judgment. And one of the first shows we taped was Salt and Pepper was in a studio rehearsing for a music video, getting their dance steps. So I went there, joked around with them. Really gave you a feel of the artist in their environment. That's the best thing that would happen with Yo MTV Raps. We would take you to where the artist is. So when we went out to Compton, we were right there with N.W.A, introducing them to the country, riding around Compton in an open flatbed truck, the Ghetto Boys in the 5th Ward in Houston, or like Pete Rock's basement up in Mount Vernon, or the Dungeon family, Rico Wade and them in Atlanta, in their basement where they was really cooking up incredible music. So just taking the audience right there, plus it satisfied my natural curiosity, like, how you putting these beats together, what's inspiring you and all that. And it was just amazing to share that with people around the country and around the world.
And I think for people too, in that era, it's hard to, compared to where we are now, it's like we can just look on our phone and see what Compton looks like, or see what a recording studio looks like, or see what the artist is doing, because it's all right out there. But that was a pretty groundbreaking concept.
It was groundbreaking. I just want to add, I was one of those guys on the weekends that had a fresh cassette tape ready to pop in to record Red Alert show.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I still got a bunch of them tapes in the stash, Looking back 30-something years later, it was a volcano that was really about to blow. And Yo MTV Raps was the eruption.
Fab, in terms of the importance of Yo MTV Raps to the explosion of black music and for black artists, give us a sense of that.
I mean, it was a thing where we were just talking a little while ago, like in New York, Red Alert had a show on the weekends, as did Mr. Magic, rest in peace, that had a show on the weekends that introduced a lot of, introduced Shante to a lot of us. And that was it for us in New York. And in many other cities, there was nothing. California had K-Day, which was an AM rap station. And then out of nowhere, here comes Yo MTV Raps, where you get the music and the visuals. And it ignited an industry, because rap records really weren't marketed or promoted at that time, and the records were selling like crazy already, just on the strength of people saying this is a great record. So when MTV happened, it ignited things in an accelerated pace, and then I got a chance to go to different parts of the country and find out and talk to Luke in Miami, N.W.A in Cali and things like that. So it was pretty interesting.
And so in terms of the time frame, so were they working? There were these developing hip hop scenes in these other cities when you started to travel people around?
Yeah, it was really, and looking back 30-something years later, it was a volcano that was really about to blow. And Yo MTV Raps was the eruption, if you will, and people got to see and hear and run to the store to support these artists. And then more artists came. People said, oh, I can do this too. And I think one of the more surprising things for me was not just seeing it happen around the country, was around the world. I mean, MTV's feed was picked up all across Europe. People sent those tapes to other countries, and it sparked a movement around the world. So it's pretty amazing.
And it was a real, and the version of sending a link in that era, but it took a lot more time because you had this physical thing, it had to be packaged.
Right.
You had to go somewhere to mail it or to send it or to ship it. Red, how did people get music to you that they wanted you to hear? Because is this true, like artists with, tapes in the trunks of some old car trying to go around and get on?
Well, many a times when I was going to various places out of New York City, people was handing me tapes, handing me records. I was getting a lot of material coming shipped to me or mailed to me at home or even at the radio station. I mean, they find some kind of way just to hand it to me for me to give it a listen, and I'll make my choice from there.
You must have been bombarded.
Oh, my furniture was records.
You must be bombarded.
My furniture was records and tapes. I still got a lot of that to this day.
All those historical historical music things.
It's treasure.
Roxanne, talk to me about the hustle. Do you still feel there's like a certain hustle that's unique to New York?
Absolutely, and I think that's not just in music, that's just being a native New Yorker, that's just New York in general. Right. We're known to go places and tend to dominate, not because we intend to do so, but because that's the whole New York persona. Right. We are going to make something out of nothing because we've always been able to do that, and I think that is like the spark of being a New Yorker. But one of the things I wanted to say about Fab Five Freddy and Yo MTV Raps, what they did was they actually, because see, I would come home and tell my tour stories to everyone, but I could only tell that to my immediate circle. What he did was they took the entire world on tour so that they can see what it was like. Because see, these were things we experienced jumping off the bus, right? Seeing what it's like in another town, seeing what their food was like, going into their homes.
The style of dress, everything.
The style of dress, hearing how their moms talk, seeing what their favorite pets are, seeing how their dogs are in the yard. So for me to come home and try to explain to them like, yo, listen, let me tell you what they doing in Atlanta. Once you leave this and you go down there, this is how everybody is. And they down there in the basement and it's like this. Right. But then they came along and said, listen, or rather he did, because he came up with the concept of it, was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the entire world on a hip hop tour. So people would run to their televisions and be able to say, guess where I went today? I was able to go to Texas. I was able to go to Atlanta. I was in California, and really have that visual that was never allowed before.
As you introduced, you mentioned that hip hop is the most streamed music on all digital platforms globally. That's because hip hop has such deep, strong roots. And going back to the era where Red Alert comes from, in the Bronx, the foundation, even the era of the emergence of Roxanne, we were just trying to tell people we're here. Here's where we are, and we mean something. And it was like real simple, real humble, but those roots went down really far. And then when the roots go down far, the tree can get really big.
In the hustle and bustle of producing and getting the show on and getting to this city and that city, are there certain themes from everywhere you went or from that era that kind of stick with you?
Yeah, there was a theme. It was almost like what went down in New York was an algorithm that everybody was like, hey, wait a minute, I got that, I can do that, but I'm gonna talk about what's going on in my hood, in my backyard, in my life. And then that taught everybody else what went on in Atlanta, what went on in South Central. So we all got to communicate in a way or understand each other's language from hood to hood, city to city, coast to coast around the world.
And Red, do you think the different ways people listen to music in different cities, like we always heard LA and Atlanta, it was always, you're in a car. People would get packed into a car, gather around somebody's convertible and listen to the joint.
You gotta understand something. Now, here it is that what I was doing is audio. But what is it that Yo MTV Rap was visual and educate you to let you know what was going on besides where you live at in other different spectrums across the country. So when you go ahead to these different cities and you get to meet the people, and I mainly always got to be in coincidences with the DJs, they let me know about their lifestyle, I let them know about my lifestyle, exchange music, change thoughts, and open the doors.
I want to add that, I've also, as a filmmaker, I directed about 70 music videos. The first music video I directed was a video called My Philosophy for KRS-One, which actually was 30 years ago as well. 30 years ago this month in May. And in the beginning of that video, there's two little kids. One little kid teaching another little kid how to scratch. That's Red Alert's son as a baby, teaching Scott LaRock's son as a baby.
Oh, wow.
And that's the beginning of the video. And I did that specifically because Scott had recently been killed. KRS was now emerging solo. I put those visuals together, and I was just asking Red before we do that, how's your son? Because his son is probably about 31, 32, and because he was a little bit older than...
He's a little older.
A little older than that. But anyway, they're both little boys. Scott LaRock's son was a baby. Red's son was a little older, and he's teaching Scott like this.
That's so awesome. And so much of it was like on the job training, right? Yes. Roxanne, you gotta figure it out right now.
Absolutely, and I think I don't envy the artists of today because they will never be able to enjoy the way we enjoy tour. Like, we even enjoyed the bad things on tour.
Tell me about that, because we always hear artists complain about, I got to do a tour. I'm going to make $20 million, and I got to do a tour. It's going to be a rough...
Well, see, for us, a tour was... Because a lot of us came from the projects, a lot of us came from...
Was good hotel rooms.
Like the only time we got to travel was like Fresh Air Fun. That's like when you went to somebody else's family and you seen something different. So, we didn't get a chance to travel like that. So for us, tour was just an experience of life, of being able to go someplace different, eat different foods, go to different restaurants, do what you love to do, and actually be paid for it and travel with it. So there were times
There's a joy to it.
It was a joy to it. Like, there were times when the promoter didn't show up with the money, which still happens today. That still happens today. That just happened.
No bag.
Yeah. Janky promoters is just janky promoters. But I remember the fact that we being from New York, we weren't even worried about the promoters not paying us or how we would get home. Because, people used to get one-ways back then. You know why?
They get your one-way ticket to
because we had airlines called People's Airlines.
People in
pay in the air, remember?
Mad cheap. Freddie Laker.
Yeah, and you pay in the air. So it was a
like a bus.
Like a bus.
Super distant.
So it's listen, so
that
it's
was
like
a flying trailways.
As long as we get on People's Airlines, they can't throw us out in the air.
Right.
Like that was like the New York
Coming out of
That was the New York mentality.
It's like New York Airport. So as long as we can get to Newark, we can get somebody.
In the old Newark Airport, the unredesigned Newark Airport.
Yeah, People's Airlines. I think hip hop might have put them out of business.
Fab, what do you think about the future of hip hop?
I think the future of hip hop is strong because there's so many places for it to exist. Once again, it's no longer you want to get on these handful of radio stations or these handful of TV shows. You can now have your own TV show and you can access it right here on your phone and get access to all this stuff if you make the right music and if you stay focused and on your game. It can happen. You have to figure it out because this game is evolving fast and the rules are changing. So you just got to stay ahead of it.
Definitely. Roxanne, real quick, final word.
I feel that hip hop is definitely going into a more positive and strong direction. I think that we are definitely coming out of the pill culture and we are going more so into a whole healthy mental and physical environment with it, because I noticed from the lyrical change in a lot of records, they're no longer talking about that. They're starting to talk about getting businesses, supporting our people, standing behind people politically, respecting our women. So I see a great change in hip hop and I see the future as being nothing but bright and positive. Thank God.
I love that. Wow. That's a great way to end. All right, I want to thank you all for being with us. One and only Kool DJ Red Alert. Great to have you on this show.
Respect.
Roxanne Shante, great to have you with us again. Thank you so much. Fab Five Freddy, awesome to have you. There we go. There it is.
Yo MTV Raps.
I want 30. Wait, get my marker. I got my Sharpie. I want to autograph on that one. You'll tag it for me. Okay. I want to thank you all for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. Let's push for peace.